Am I the asshole for not paying half of my boyfriend's rent and bills? Gonna try and be brief here due to the character limit. My boyfriend, 26M, and I, 24F, have been dating for just over 2 years. We've never lived together. In September 2020 my boyfriend took a job in a different city, 2 hours away, without asking me for my opinion or even telling me that he'd applied for it. It was his dream job and so not taking it was never an option, he said. He never asked me to move with him, but even if he had asked, I wouldn't have been able to. I live in the same town as my parents, who are both ill, and I wouldn't want to move away while they still need me. My job is also here. The city he's moving to is also nearly twice as expensive to rent in. This obviously caused some friction between us and we nearly broke up over it, but ultimately I agreed to visit him regularly. Since he moved, I've gone to visit him once or twice a month for a week at a time when COVID allows it, and it's not cheap. The train to see him is about $50 each way. We don't live in the US, but that's the currency conversion rate. So I'm spending about $100 $200 each month to see him, and I pay half of any grocery shopping we do. I also rent my own apartment back in my hometown. When I visit him, I stay at his apartment, where he lives alone and pays around $975 per month in rent. Edit because apparently people don't get this. My job lets me work from home, so I work from his apartment. I don't take 2 weeks off work every month, LMAO. Last week, he told me that he wants me to start paying half his bills and half the rent for when I come to stay with him. Edit for clarity. I spend between 1–2 weeks there, so he's asked for half the bills and rent of those periods, not the total month. I told him that I wasn't okay with that for a few reasons. He's the one who chose to move to an expensive city without any of my input. I already pay $100 $200 on train fares to see him, which he doesn't contribute to, and I have to pay for my own apartment. If I paid half his rent, my cost of living would be higher than his for a situation I didn't choose. He replied that it wasn't fair that his bills increased when I came to visit him because of the water, electricity etc. So I told him that my train fare was the equivalent of that, and also much more expensive than just my portion of his water. So if he wanted me to pay half the bills then he would have to pay half my train fare. This apparently wouldn't be fair as he's not the one taking the train, so he shouldn't have to pay. At this point, I just told him that either he pays half my train fare, we both move somewhere that isn't stupidly expensive, or I stop visiting. He told me I was being unwilling to compromise and the atmosphere has been frosty ever since. I don't think I'm being unreasonable here, but I've spoken to a few friends about it and the opinion seems pretty split, so I'm putting it to the Reddit hive mind. Edit. Oh wow, this blew up overnight. I didn't expect the overwhelming response to this. I'm half expecting my boyfriend to find this Reddit post now, but even if he doesn't, it looks like there's really only one way forward here. Thanks everyone for your input, advice and judgment. Not the asshole, and I think you are onto something with the option to stop visiting him. Not the asshole. Unbelievable, he's being totally unreasonable. As well as the train fare, maybe he should also compensate you for your travel time. Then you will pay his extra water cost. This guy is not a keeper. Not the asshole, not gonna lie. Sounds a bit like he doesn't know how to end a relationship, so he's just making an unreasonable request and will treat as a deal breaker. NTA. I'm spacing this out for emphasis. He doesn't care about you. Location flag. He doesn't communicate or respect you. Location flag. He moved. Location flag. He chose that without so much as a "what do you think?" convo. Location flag. He made you come to him. Location flag. You pay for food when you visit. You pay for all travel expenses. Location flag. You put your life on pause half the time to see him on his terms. Location flag. Now he is demanding money to spend time with him. Location flag. What off? This guy only ever thinks about himself. Location flag. You can do so much better. It's his loss. Not the asshole, your boyfriend wants to come out ahead financially by taking advantage of you. Not the asshole. Wow. So you're the one that puts in the time and effort and expense to visit, but he still wants to nickel and dime you. This is not the sound of a loving relationship. He wants to be with you, if it's worth his while. Why are you putting up with this? He wants you to pay half the rent for an apartment you don't actually live in anywhere close to full time, that you already pay to visit in the form of travel costs? No, that is beyond stupid. You're his GF, not his sugar mommy. If he says his bills get higher due to your visits, he can start visiting you instead. Are you sure he's worth dating? Not the asshole. He's doing some pretty serious mental gymnastics to reach this logical conclusion. It sounds to me like he doesn't want you visiting. You're putting a lot of effort into this relationship. What effort is he putting into it on his end? Am I the asshole for not telling my Sil that a vegan cookie is still a cookie? My 29F, Sil, 36F, is usually very nice, but has, if not an eating disorder, very concerning food tendencies in my very uneducated opinion. She is very controlling of her daughter's 9 nutrition, to the tune of sending her to birthday parties with homemade snacks while everyone else has a cupcake. Note: niece doesn't have a medical condition that would warrant this. We got all her medical info, etc., in case of emergency while she stayed at us. My niece stayed for a week. Sil didn't send a meal plan, but did check in about what we intended to serve, etc., and approved it in broad strokes. While we were using one of my cookbooks, niece found a recipe for vegan chocolate chip cookies. She didn't ask to make them, but she kept flipping back to look. I told her we could ask her mother, so on their phone call that night she asked. Sil asked to talk to me. She just asked, "These cookies are vegan?" I said yes. She said that was great, have fun, she'd see us soon. We made the cookies and they're great. They are also chocolate chip cookies. They're balls of sugar and fat. My niece was happy, we ate them in moderation, etc. We had a few left over when my Sil and brother-in-law arrived today, so when they came over they saw them, and my Sil asked niece to go to her bedroom and start packing. She was leaving after dinner, and as soon as she was gone she launched into a bunch of accusatory questions. After some back and forth, it became clear that, in her mind, a vegan chocolate chip cookie would be like, unsweetened cocoa nibs in broccoli slaw or something. Sil is furious. She thinks that, since I knew the standards that she has for her family, I should have explained more. She didn't ask more questions because she trusted me and didn't think I'd ask something I knew she wouldn't approve of. She's also mad it was my idea to ask her to make them, that her daughter knew they weren't good for her and I confused her. I got kind of pissed during this exchange, and did say, "I didn't think I had to tell you that a cookie is a cookie. Hey, Sil, that corn chowder has corn in it." They did not stay for dinner. My partner has spoken with his brother, and said they decided that they are each going to tell their respective partners that we're right, but we should apologize anyway for peace in the family. He does think I'm right anyway. We're meeting up tomorrow, in public, for lunch and the exchange of these insincere apologies. I might be the asshole because my Sil is kind of right. I did know she wouldn't approve of the cookies, and I was surprised she allowed it. I may have obeyed the letter of the law but not the spirit. Also, I definitely got rude. On the other hand, a cookie is a cookie. Either way, I will be meeting tomorrow to apologize, but let me know. Am I the asshole, actually? Edit. To clarify, because I see this a lot in comments, Sil isn't vegan, I am. She's just very health focused, low fat, low cal, etc. She assumed vegan equals healthy. Not the asshole. Your Sil seems joyless and self-righteous. You did nothing wrong. Calling her in advance to ask if it was okay to make these cookies was going above and beyond. She should have asked for the recipe at that point if she's going to be that militant about a child's diet. Corn chowder line was gold. Not the asshole. That poor child. Not the asshole. You actually did check with her, and with such a strict diet it's strange that your Sil doesn't know what vegan actually means. And while yes, you could have gone an extra bit to clarify, your Sil is an adult, you shouldn't need to hand-hold that much. I agree, it's a cookie. Her daughter knew they weren't good for her and I confused her. She's 9. A cookie isn't going to confuse her, she knows exactly what she's missing out on. I don't think you're the asshole here, but I mostly feel bad for the 9-yo whose diet sounds frankly too restrictive. That kid is gonna go nuts when they are older and eat so much junk food when they aren't under their parents' thumb any longer. Not the asshole, and honestly I wouldn't apologize. I mean, I understand that you might want to just so you'll still be allowed to see your niece, and that's fair. But yikes, you are so not in the wrong here. Your Sil is a terrible mother. 9-year-olds are supposed to eat cookies and other junk food. It's part of a normal childhood. Unless they have a medical condition, of course. This insane policing of her eating habits will probably lead to some serious psychological trauma for your niece later in life, including possibly an eating disorder. Not the asshole, they decided that they are each going to tell their respective partners that we're right. He does think I'm right anyway. This part made me laugh so hard. Of course, not the asshole. You probably taught the kid some great life skills like reading a recipe and baking. Sil sounds insufferable. You should order a cookie at the restaurant. My sister is the same way. She's creating a monster eating disorder for my niece by controlling every bite she takes. Once she blew up at me because I got the kid some extra vinegar for her salad. Vinegar. Like I was supposed to know vinegar is the enemy. Not the asshole, op. Your sil is controlling and she's giving her daughter the same issues my niece has. Once she's older she'll eat all that stuff behind her mom's back and they'll really be at war. Not the asshole. Instead of an apology you should sit brother-in-law down and ask him what the hell he is thinking. There is nothing funny about SIL's behavior. She's setting their child up for lifelong physical and mental health problems. And your husband should back you up. Maybe brother-in-law believes that he's keeping the peace in their marriage or that she knows what's best for their daughter, so you need to give him a little reality. He needs to step up and intervene. I had a friend with food issues and by the time her daughter was 9 she was already experiencing food-related health issues. Am I the asshole for demanding my MIL leave? My husband, 33 male, and I, 32 female, had our first child a few weeks ago. We are simultaneously exhausted, terrified, and unbelievably happy. My parents and his mother have been so helpful in bringing meals and helping around the house occasionally so we can rest and enjoy spending time with our daughter. I love my MIL, but she is obsessed with having our child baptized. She doesn't go to mass ever, so I don't get why she's so adamant about it. People telling me I need to do something because their religion dictates it is very triggering. I grew up in a very strict religious household and am still deconstructing its hold on me. Therefore my knee-jerk reaction to this sort of thing is anger. It is an unhealthy response, and I am aware of this and am trying to find a therapist covered by my insurance. We were having dinner that she brought over and she would not stop harping on the subject. I was a steamed little dumpling and finally responded with what I thought would be the ending statement on the matter. We're not interested in baptizing Lyra. If she expresses interest in church when she is older, I'll gladly take her. But until she's sentient enough to form her own opinions about it, we're not participating. That's our decision and we're sticking by it. MIL. What if you fall with her in your arms during one of your episodes? You think she'll get into heaven then if she's not baptized? By episode, she means seizure. I am epileptic and have grand mal seizures, which means I have the really fun dramatic ones where I collapse and convulse for around 30 seconds. I told her months ago in an emotional moment that I had nightmares about having a seizure and dropping my daughter or falling on her. This for me was the final straw. Believe me when I say I wanted to dive over the table. I took some deep breaths while my husband responded to her. I don't even know what he said. I was so angry that I couldn't focus on anything else. Finally I calmed down enough to speak in a normal tone. How dare you try to weaponize my fear and manipulate me like that? Get out and do not come back until you can respect our boundaries. Both H and MIL looked taken aback. Neither of them responded. I wasn't sure if I could continue the conversation without starting to cry, so I just picked up my baby and took her into our bedroom. I heard raised voices and then the door slammed. She has not apologized or spoken to me at all since then. H supports me, but says I could have handled it better. I don't resent him for instinctively trying to keep the peace, but I told him that I have no regrets about what I did. He has been fielding the massive blowback from his side of the family and presenting us as a unified front even though he thinks I was a little harsh. I am trying to enjoy my maternity leave but am being eaten up by guilt. MIL was so helpful and made our lives easier after a very difficult birth and I feel like an ungrateful jerk. So, am I in the wrong here? NTA. She was weaponizing your fears. Sounds like you handled it appropriately. That being said, it's still not her choice. You both gave said no, so she needs to drop it. Not the asshole. How dare she use your medical condition as an excuse to push her fantasy religious beliefs on you and your child, as well as to even mention the idea of your child getting hurt from a seizure. It must be scary enough as it is having your first child. If your child wants to get involved with religion, then so be it, but it should be their decision and not forced upon them. Yes, they should learn to be tolerable of and understanding of other religious views, but they don't need to share them. As someone who has seizures, I would have said the same thing. How dare her? I probably would have went across the table. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. She did exactly what you said. She weaponized your fear for her own ends. If she doesn't like the consequences, then she should change her behavior. Not the asshole. I'm gonna say your husband is could have handled it better? You are exhausted and she keeps pushing you. You know what? He could have handled it better. Oh honey, no, not the asshole. Religion is so unnecessary to foist on an infant. Everyone deserves to believe in what they choose. Your mill is trying to force you into something you are not comfortable with, and trying to guilt and manipulate you into doing so. Stand your ground on this one. Your mill can apologize for making such an insensitive comment. Not the asshole. She used your fears to her advantage and to force religion on your child. Also, who the hell says something like that? Who is thinking about the death of their grandchildren? What the hell is wrong with her? She is severely unhinged, and I would not back down a bit. Edited to add, do not let her take your child out of the home by herself. Old Bat will probably take the kid to the river for a good old-fashioned baptizin'. Not the asshole. Your baby, your rules. Am I the asshole for telling my family that we wouldn't go to family events if my brother-in-law was there? My F42 sister, F38, got married a few years ago. He's M45, on his third marriage, lies about everything, and they broke up and got back together a ton of times before getting married. During one breakup, he was dog-sitting and wouldn't give her dog back when she returned, and when she messaged me and our other sister to ask us what to do, he messaged me to say she was drunk and lying. IDK how he knew she was talking to us. And #X200B. She AL significant other told us her neighbor told her that he'd been in her house just before she came home from work for lunch one day. Neighbor saw him running out of house and speeding away just as my sister pulled into drive. He broke in through dog door, took her panties to wank in, and went through computer to see other guys she'd been talking to. And #X200B. She moved a state away and bought a house after all this, but they started long-distance dating again, and it was less than a year before he talked her into moving back. As soon as she moved back, he proposed and talked her into getting married right away. And #X200B. They planned a wedding 3 months later. I was worried, but she said she loved him and asked for support, so I honored that. I was Mo and drove a state away with kids in tow at a bad time to support her. He made the entire weekend about his friends and made my sister cry more than once. And #X200B. The wedding was in the middle of nowhere, so I packed food for my kids, who have multiple medical conditions, and he ate it in front of them as I was asking him to stop because I couldn't get more. And #X200B. The year they got married, we met at my parents' for Thanksgiving. I made the food and brought it over. And we waited for hours for them to show up. I finally texted them and found out that they were doing a Friendsgiving first, so they would be hours late to our meal. Lunch ended up being dinner. And #X200B. When they finally arrived, my brother-in-law kept talking about his diverticulitis and how he was too sick to eat what I made. No one told me he was sick. While we ate, he gave gross details of his illness. I have serious and chronic illnesses myself, but I'd never do that. And #X200B. After we ate, I'm already mad at this point, he starts playing with my daughters. My husband told them not to run through the house. 1. My parents don't like them to run inside, and 2. They have epilepsy and can fall easily and get hurt. I decided to leave B.C. of how my sister was acting, so was walking up to get them when I heard brother-in-law whispering to my daughters that it was okay to lie to their daddy as long as he never found out. He couldn't see me. I just got my kids and left. Told my husband when we got home and later talked to my girls, who told me he creeped them out. And #X200B. I said we didn't want my kids to be around him ever again. My mom said she would not put my sister in that position. My sister called me an effing liar. Other than my husband, their dad. Everyone took my BIL side, including my older sister. So, am I the asshole? Not the asshole. The part where he told your kids it's okay to lie as long as their dad didn't find out sounds like something that would be used when grooming children for sexual abuse. 100% keep your kids away from him. I was undecided until I heard brother-in-law whispering to my daughters that it was okay to lie to their daddy as long as he never found out. Not the asshole. Don't let your girls within eyesight of this man. Seriously. Just don't. Not the asshole. Interesting that you mother would say that she wouldn't put your sister in that position. I'm sorry, but your sister put herself in that position by marrying this guy. She must be color blind because the number of red flags in her relationship before marriage was unbelievable. Your first duty is to your children. Keep them away from this guy. Not the asshole. Protecting your kids is the #1 priority. Unfortunately, it's fairly common for people to side with abusers to not rock the boat. Quote, not the asshole that sounds like a groomer. I said we didn't want my kids to be around him ever again. My mom said she would not put my sister in that position. My sister called me an fiend liar. Other than my husband, their dad. Everyone took my BIL side, including my older sister. So, am I the asshole? Not the asshole. It should be self-evident, but your first loyalty is always your core family, your husband and your kids. Blood relatives are on the second place, in-laws on third. And your sleazy, creepy, abusive JRK of brother-in-law made something. What could be a first step of grooming? So, never ever let him be nearer than 10 miles near to your children. Even without the backstory, this one event is enough. Not the asshole. But don't let this dude take over your family. Are you sure they all got the whole story? Fight back. Write out, in detail, all of this stuff and more. Then send the email to everyone, along with a demand that the family accommodate you, a blood relative, over him, a non-relative who is screwing over your sister. Not the asshole. Your kids is your number one priority.